Adobe CS2 Classroom in a Book. We've arrived at Lesson 6, working with type. As we're going to start this, let's have a look at our finished product. I would also like to point out to you that this is a lesson. It does have a built-in template with it, but it really wouldn't be all that hard for you as a user to design or build up this template for yourself. It's got some people that have been outlined at the bottom of their feet. You could do that quite quickly with the tool that we just used last chapter, the Live Trace tool. There's a box in here for text that can be quickly built using a rectangular tool and then converting it to a text tool. And there's a circle sitting here that we can use for text on a path. And again, it's pretty straightforward to set those things up. In fact, we're going to be looking at some of that stuff, also working with it in this lesson. So our finished product has some warp text. You can see that there's the original text and there's the effect there, text on a path, columns in a text area, text wrapped around an object, some text that's arranged vertically here, and text on a path to go around the circle. I'm going to close the finished product for now, and we are starting then in our book on page 177, 178, opening our file. So we have L6 begin open, and we are asked to save it in step 4 as shoe poster. And then moving on to page 179, importing text files. Illustrator is not a text editor. It's not a word processor. It is a program for graphic design. If you have paragraph text to work with, spell check, grammar check, use a word processor like Microsoft Word. This version of Illustrator supports .doc versions of Word, as well as some other text versions. I would imagine the newer versions of Illustrator probably support docx, but you'd have to check that. So, page 179, we are going to change or select this area here. Use a type tool. There's 2 ways of doing it. You can click and type, or you can click and drag like the textbook asks you. Use the little cross on the stick, vertical stick there, to reference where your text box is going to start and end. Let go, and that will produce an area in which to import text. We're going to use the place command, and we are looking for L6 copy text, and go place. And we are going to leave the default options alone and click OK. And that brings us to 180 and creating columns of text. And notice this is 1 column of text. The textbook wants it in 2. And we're working in a type area, as we just clicked and dragged, so we can use the type area type options. And it wants us to set 2 columns. The rest of my numbers are close enough, I think, that I'm going to leave things alone and click OK. Or if you wish, you can click preview. You can just move the mouse or move the thing over for a sec and then click OK. And at this point, I am going to save. I should have picked Save As. I have a bunch of things to undo here. Because I just wrote over my demonstration file, and I better fix that for a sec before I forget. Replace that file. Okay. And then I'm going to go edit, redo type, redo place, redo area type, file, save as. Now right over my begin one. Yep. Okay. Don't do that again. Understanding text flow, page 182. We're going to work with the type tool a little bit here for a minute and then show you how to set up an area type. And we're just going to open a new file here, which we can ditch or just get rid of. We just want a new document setup, leave it, put in a rectangle, assuming that you want a 2x2 area. You can just click, and that brings in your rectangle area. You can type in 2 inches, and again 2 inches, and there's your text box. Whether or not it has a fill or a stroke, it doesn't matter at this point. We're going to use step 4 on page 183. We're going to use the type tool, and as you watch the type tool, the shape of the tool changes when you click the edge, or when you get to the edge. If you click, that changes your type, or that square that you put in, a rectangle that you put in, into an area type. We are going to go File, Place now, because we're going to put text in there. And if you remember, I said that you can put in .doc text. And we're going to use the Microsoft order copy here and place it. And we're going to leave everything in there as it sits. Notice that you can bring in table of contents text, that you can put in footnotes, index text. I believe also that if you have formatted headings, those headings will also stay formatted. So some of the styles that you use in your doc text will get transferred over. And on page 183, step 6, you notice that there is a red plus here. And that red plus indicates that this text box is too full to hold the text. There is a couple of options you can work with, and that works over to page 184. Threading text is what it's called, and basically that allows you to direct text from one area into another area, one defined area to another area. If we use the selection tool, we can click the plus here, and then we can just drag in and drop a box. And that basically means that you've loaded your cursor, and then as you drag and drop, that loads in or sets up another text area. If you manipulate this text like this, you can see that the box is going to get smaller and it holds less text. As you make this text box larger, it will take text from the other box until it fills. The other thing you can do with this is you can set up another text box like this, and then you can use your selection tool, and you can pick, or you should be able to pick that path and then thread it over. And that would be, if I could find that box back, there you go, click on the edge of the box. You should be able to click on the edge of the box and place that text. So you can see, click the path and chain it, and then that will bring that in there. The other option you have is if you went to type and you went to threaded text, which we can't do right now at this point, because if I delete this, we'll be able to do that now. We could have two boxes made. Let's see if we can do this quickly. One area type, and then make another area type. If we select these two boxes together, we can go Object, Threaded Text, and create, and that would automatically bring text from this into this box. And you could do that with like a magazine design or layout or something like that. That would help. Now I should be able to, if I can find this text here, click this one, and then as this text shrinks, It should push over from one box into the next box into the next box. You can make it as complicated as you like. The other little thing that you can do with this is, because these are actually shapes, you can grab anchors on them, and you can use your shape adjust tool to actually adjust the shape of the text boxes. So if you have something that's a little strange and you want to accommodate some shape and fill text with it, you can do it that way, and that's using the direct select tool, picking an anchor and adjusting it, or picking a path and adjusting it. And notice how the text itself continues to flow and resize or fill the text box, the first one, as it's needed. All right, so we've played with threading text. I've played with the anchor points on the corner, as on page 186, and that basically finishes us in this playing with text box areas, threading text, to page 187. And by the way, if you work with Adobe InDesign, you'd also have that functionality with threading text boxes. I'm going to close this file and say no, and that brings me back to this area here. All right, so changing text attributes on page 187. We're to pick the all the text in this text area here. You have a couple options. You can go Control A, or you can go to Select All and pick all the text. Just be careful that you don't hit other keys when you're doing this. On page 188, we're asked to basically look at the options bar for the text tool, and notice that there is a lot of different character styles that you could pick, or font families, however you want to call it. Same as in Microsoft Word or any other text editor. You pick the family, you pick the style that you want. In this case, something like this only has one option. Some of the others will have many more options. Doesn't really matter. You can change the size here, center, right, left, align. Those basic commands are there, and that's what steps 2, 3, and up to 4 are asking you to do. It wants us to end up with Myriad Pro, and there's a way of working through this. You can just kind of start typing whatever you want for your character type, and it wants us to set Myriad Pro and regular and 12 point, and that is going to bring us down to the bottom of page 189 with all of our fonts still selected. And we are going to change some font color here now. We've got Myriad Pro, regular, and 12 point set. 190, step 1. First line of the text, click and drag to pick it. Fill or fill. Go to white, and that's going to change the text first line to be white, and then we're going to change the size to 14. It mentions a control palette, and that's found by clicking on the character palette sitting up in here. Character palette, and that's what you're seeing on page 191. And I'd like to really quickly go through this thing with you. I'm looking at the bottom of page 191, and just going to walk through these boxes. So this Myriad Pro is the type of font, and this is regular, italic, bold. You've seen that, the font style. This is your actual font size, how big it appears on the page. Kerning between the characters. If we play with this, basically I believe that splits or opens how much area you have between your type. This will increase the tracking. You can see that it's spreading things out. Leading is how much space there is before a text above the line. You can see that your shoes is starting to drop down. This is actual making the text bigger by scaling it vertically or horizontally. This is basically going to allow you to change where the text appears on the actual line. So shift it up or down. And this is going to rotate the text. As you can see, as I change this, it rotates the individual characters of the text. So let's reset these all things back to their initial positions. I think this one was a 0. This should have been about 14 or 15. That's close enough. That's set it auto. And I think this one was supposed to be 14 from the bottom of page 190. Okay, so we've got that happening, and now we're on page 192. I'm just going to click beside there, and that box will disappear. Changing character attributes. So we can go to Window, and we should be able to find something in here about paragraph. There's our control palette. Here's our paragraphs thing sitting right here. So you got character, now you got paragraph. In the bottom here, it wants us to adjust space before the paragraph by 6 points. And we were supposed to have done this for all of our text. So we'll Control A, go back in here, and let's just reset this like that. Or maybe we'll have to do undo. So undo type style, Control A, paragraph. It's not going to let us do that. That's 5. Will let us do multiple paragraphs like this now. Yes, it will. Basically, you can see that it kind of separates the lines of paragraph apart a little bit. Okay. So now we need to see the actual bars to work with this. If we go to Window and Type and Character, that'll show us some of these commands that we've seen before. And if we click here, we've got the paragraph here. And we can see paragraph styles, character styles. Now that would be similar to the actual styles panel in a word processor where you can set up automatic formatting for headings or whatever. And we are supposed to go to New Paragraph Style window. It says Paragraph Style, and we want to add a new paragraph style, and we want to call this one Subhead. This basically allows you to set up a bunch of formats in your document so that you can use like the format painter option and do it that way. So we are going to be looking in here for throw away your old tire shoes, and we should be able to click on the subhead, and that should apply it. So we got this guy picked. This should be this. Redefine a paragraph style. That's our subhead. And then somewhere in here, throw away your paragraphs, your old tired shoes. If you pick that paragraph, you click subhead, there you should go. So there we go. Creating and using character styles, sitting on page 193. So I ended up picking the paragraph, picking this area here, this subhead, and defining the style based onto the subhead. If you notice that, it's not different now, so it doesn't give me that option. And then when I picked this paragraph here earlier, I had defined it as being subhead, so it automatically picked up the redefined style when I applied it. If I wanted to make this now that same style, which I could do if it lets me pick the line, it would be a matter of clicking on subhead and it should apply that style there automatically. Now I'm going to undo that last one though. Okay, back to 193, step 1. We are going to create character styles, so we want Sammy's shoe world in the first column of the text, and I can't see that with my font zoom set at this level, so I am going to see if I can zoom in on here someplace and see if I can find that stuff I'm supposed to be working with. Maybe I'll move my stuff out of the way. Sammy's shoe world is sitting right there. With my text tool, I'm supposed to pick that. I'm going to change the font style to bold. The fill to red. Go to Window, Type, Character Styles. You can Alt-click, or up in the top right here, we can pick New Character Style. We're looking for bold. Click OK. Pick this. And we're going to redefine that character style as that. I think if you work through the book a little bit more carefully, then we can do better than that. If I double click this bold, apparently it's supposed to allow me to go through and change anything in here that I like or update it. As you can see things up in there. We are going to be looking for sshoeworld.com. If I can find that in here. And I'm not seeing it. Perhaps I don't have enough space in my box to display sshoeworld.com. There it is. I have to make my box a little bigger. If I use a text tool now, I can pick this and I can click my bold style and it should apply it. That's not really what I wanted to do. It's being cantankerous. Can we say apply style? There we go. Now it went. If I click off it, got it. Select, deselect. If you decide that the color isn't working, you want to change it. You have to change the color only all instances are updated. So we want to, in the character palette, for bold, if we double click it, we'll open this. And if we want character color, we can click this. We can go into here. You can pick whichever color you want. Apparently there's a Mars red in here someplace that we could grab. Click OK. And it will automatically update if we didn't have all of our text selected. Just that one thing. Be careful with your selection stuff. Okay, next job. Page 195. Using the type tool. We're supposed to find in here where it says special order the size and style you want at no extra charge. Let's see if I can scroll through that and find it. It's at the bottom here in this area. I'll even pick the brackets. In the control palette, up in here, we want to change the fill to white. And the font style to italic. Now we need to check out the 2-for-1 sale. From August to there. And we're going to go to the eyedropper tool. And basically what the eyedropper tool is going to let us pick a character style from one area and apply it to the other area. So this is a pretty reminiscent of the format painter tool in Microsoft Word as well as in Google Docs. And now we're at the point where we're going to be doing some text wrapping. I think I missed a few areas of adding white to the text here, but I think we've got enough done for a tutorial basis anyways. So my shoe file is still open. I'm going to go Control-0 to zoom out. We've had to make our text box a little bit bigger to fit things in. We may find that we still need to do that yet later here. Hopefully all this text is not actually 14 because it's not supposed to be. It is. Let's see if I can cut that back a little bit. It's supposed to have been 12 in the first part, which would explain why our text box needed to grow so much. So some of these lines in here are actually supposed to be sitting at the same format as that up there. I can let you do that if you want to. You can see what they're supposed to be from page 197 in that photo area sitting right in here. Okay, select and deselect. So I have nothing selected. I like that better sometimes. Page 196. Selection tool. Select a shoe on the page. I don't see a shoe on the page. So let's do it this way. Step 1. File open. Shoe.ai. Open. Selection tool. Select it. Edit. Copy. Close the shoe file. Edit. Paste. So we've just pasted a shoe in on this. So we want the shoe to be moved to the middle of the two columns here someplace. We want to change the opacity of the tool of that particular shoe. That should be in the appearance area. And we should be able to, on the transparency side of things, turn it down to 30. And then we should be in an object, text wrap, make. And according to the book, objects that are used to create a text wrap must be above the text wrap area. And notice that this text got pushed away from being underneath the shoe. Now you can see it's pretty close, too close to the shoe, and it also does some funny things sitting in here. So we'll see what we can do for wrap options. So object, we've got the text wrap sitting in here, and we can release it, and that would stop it. Or we can go text wrap options, and we're going to increase the offset with the previous. You can kind of see what's happening there, and it wants us to change the offset to 16 points, and that will basically take this area here to such an extent that, and you can see where the text is going to wrap now, that line there, and go OK. And we can't fit character in between there. It should be all right. If worst comes to worst, you can always grab, should be able to grab in here with your text wrap. I believe you can anyways. It's not letting me. Sometimes it'll allow you to adjust that bounding box or whatever you want to call it to make that text, squeeze it out. So we've made that, adjusted our options. You can save it now, and if you need to, if you want to, you can push this thing around a little bit so it looks a little better. Sometimes it's not nice to have a heading that's broken up over 3 lines. So if you give it some space or move your object, it'll adjust that a little bit. Over to the page 198, reshaping text with a warp. So we're going to go to select, deselect. So we have nothing selected anymore. We're going to go to our type tool, and we're going to set Myriad Pro. We need to set black. That'll make the text heavier and blacker. We need to set our fill to black. We need to set our size to 85, and I'm going to type that one in by hand because it's not an option to pick. And then we're asked to click on this area here because we're going to be working over top of it and we don't want to disturb it too much. We can lock it. So we'll lock that selection and go back to our type tool. Click on it over here someplace. We're supposed to type in kick it up in all caps. We typed it out, step 3, and we're going to switch to the selection tool. So we've got that all selected, and by the way, the fill should have been black. You can change that. Step 4, we're going to go to Effect, Warp. We want to pick Arc Upper. We can set Preview if you like. And the number they use is 50, 00. Horizontal, if you want to play with it a little bit, go right ahead. In fact, I encourage you to take a second or two and play with it. The distortion too, you can do some interesting things with this and still leave it as editable text. And when you're done, we are going to go OK. And you can use the type tool. You can pick the type. In the control palette, we want the fill box. We're going to select white. On the stroke box, we're going to choose pumpkin. And the stroke weight, want 2. You may have to pick it or type it. And there you go. It's selected. It's done. And it wants us to add a drop shadow effect. I have already clicked on this with the selection tool. So I'm going to go to Effect, and we're going to go to Stylize. We're going to add a drop shadow. That gives us an options box. I'll leave the defaults and pick OK. Turn on the preview. Next thing comes with an interesting part. It's text on a path tool. It's one of the really interesting things with vector text in Illustrator. You can actually stylize your text or set up your text so it will actually follow a pathway. And you can just define the pathway and draw it in with the pen tool, click and drag, as we worked together with in lesson 4 when we were drawing with the pen tool. So selection tool, we are going to click this wavy thing right there. With the type tool, we are going to be looking for the tool like this, and then as we go on to the path, it's going to change its appearance so that instead of being a stick that's horizontal, it's going to be a wavy stick on a bit of a slant. And we need to click when that appears. And this is size 85 font right now, so we're going to change it to size 36 and make it a little smaller. And we're going to type in "don't just stand there." And a few dots. I think I put in one too many spaces. Now you notice that my text is not appearing because it's giving me this box of saying it's too long. I believe if I use the selection tool, I can not do that. I should be able to grab this thing on the front end here. I'm going to make a mess of this yet. I had it. This is kind of picky. That sets that. There we go. If I'm looking, if you notice I had that little black line with the arrow off it, you can actually take this thing and slide it to the end, and you can adjust the position on the line. It's kind of looking for that shape right there, kind of like a T shape, and you can push that along your line so it fits. This text should have been black. So we can change that there. I believe, or we can change it later on to black, white, whatever it wants. Switching to type selection tool, we want this black circle. And switch to the type tool. If you hold down the Alt key, it will change this thing from a shape to a path, as you saw earlier. So we can click there. apparently it should have changed some stroke characteristics and it didn't do that. So let's try that again. Undo type. Type tool. Should be able to alt click it. Am I missing a step? I was holding control. Would help if you hold the right key. So selection tool, object, alt key, sorry, type, alt key, and click. Not control, alt. Fill and whatever are not changed to none. It doesn't really matter if the circle are changed to none, not the text. And we need to type in Sammy's shoe world. I'm just going to set caps lock. Or no, I'm not going to set caps lock because Sammy's shoe world in one line. And it wraps it around the object. To adjust the placement of the path, switch to the selection tool. There's a bracket at the beginning of the type, and at the end of the type, if I put the cursor over the center section, there's a spot there. I can just grab it and spin it on the circle. That looks pretty nice. And apparently we could grab this thing and flip it like this, so now it's inside the path rather than outside. Or you could go type on a path, options, and align to baseline, flip it, space it off, however you want to do that. I'm just going to go cancel. I think it got flipped on us. Where's that cursor? Edit undo will also work. Creating text outlines. We are going to be working off of our workspace, so I need to make this thing a little bit bigger and push it to the side there. It's one of the advantages of Illustrator. You can actually work off and then incorporate things into your drawing. I'm going to use the type tool. I'm going to click in, and I want to type in walk, run, dance. Pick the text, double click the rotate tool, you want 90 degrees. You want to see previews, that's fine. Okay. I'm going to pick this text and drop it down in the corner here. We're going to drag the upper right handle of the tool. It's another way of resizing text. Hold down the shift key so it goes proportionately, otherwise it may stretch it vertically or scale it off vertically or horizontally. So there we go. I believe we want this one also to be in black. Sorry, lied, white. Opacity. I got transparency sitting over here. I'm not seeing where the other command is offhand to adjust opacity here. I happen to have it here, so I'll just work with it here. And then we're supposed to pull this down to 75%. Perhaps if we click paragraph here, character, or perhaps if I had my bar a little bit wider open, I'd actually see it sitting right here. There's the opacity. I just had my bar too limited. Window set too small. There, make it a little bit bigger. And text area is still selected. We're going to go type, and we're going to go create outlines. Once you've created outlines, though, basically what you've note is that you see all the anchor points in here. This isn't really text anymore. So you can't go in here with a text tool and edit this. It's a shape now. What you can do, though, if you really wanted to, is you can go in and you can grab your anchors on your letters and you could adjust them. So you can do some interesting things like that if you wish to. And I'd assume that if you were going to do one end, then you would probably do similar things to the other end. Anyways, that brings us to the back of our lesson, to the end of it. There's an exploring on your own on page 205, which you can work with. And other than that, I look forward to thank you for watching in this particular tutorial, and I look forward to working with you in lesson 7 perhaps, working with layers. Have yourselves a great day.